Robert, how you doing?
Fantastic. I'm going to Spain tomorrow.
Oh yeah, for what?
My wife works in up for Broadcom, and they're doing a big conference in Barcelona. So I'm joining her for some fun this weekend.
That's awesome. So your wife works at Broadcom?
Yeah, she works at VMware, which is Broadcom, and in the conference business. That's how we met, actually. Is running conferences for programmers and people.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. It's always nice for me to kind of keep learning more about my speakers. And Robert, are you going to be able to make it to the AI amateurs?
Of course.
Okay, cool. So that's at 8 p.m. Eastern today, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. We have a lot to talk about, and we just hit 100 likes on YouTube. Congratulations, everybody. Dallas, how you doing?
Good. How are you? Big day tomorrow.
Big day tomorrow. We're going to talk about that too. Hustle Town, how are you?
Doing pretty good. I can't complain. Excited for tomorrow's results.
Nice. Ellie, how is it going with you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
All right. And JC, how is Texas?
Hey, Yaman, it's great. Just got back from Kentucky, picked my brother-in-law up from the hospital and brought him back here to Texas, and things are going great.
That is good to hear. Well, welcome everybody to episode 216. We reached 100 likes on YouTube at record time in the first minute today. So congratulations. Dallas, so we have the elections coming up tomorrow. First of all, who do you think is going to win?
The $1 million question. I would say Trump at this point looks like he has the edge, and I say edge literally because it seems to be extremely close. We watched the poly market odds pretty much collapse in the last 48 hours. I did a little bit of research into that, and it seemed to be two extremely large wagers were placed on the Kamala campaign. So we'll see what happens. I don't know that we're going to know anything solid tomorrow night, is what it's sounding like. I think they're already kind of baking it in for us to expect this to go for a few days.
Interesting. Yeah, these, like we discussed earlier, I wouldn't place much on the betting markets. The betting markets are very low liquidity. One or two large bets on either side can really move things very rapidly. And also, the composition of people betting versus answering polls versus voting are all different. So it's hard to adjust that on polls already, and on betting markets more so, because on the betting markets, you don't really know who's betting what. Whereas polls, you kind of have an idea of who's answering the questions from which states, which demographic, and you can adjust for those things, biases every now for a little bit. Dallas?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, in poly market in particular, it's hard to really follow that one because they only allow for offshore betting. So there's really no Americans' opinions or bets, I guess, if you will, in that platform. So it's all overseas. Kalshi is the other one, which seems to be allowed in the United States. So I guess that could be a little more accurate, and actually shows a tighter gap than poly market does. I try to stick to pollsters, and there's a few that I like. Mark Mitchell's kind of my favorite. He seems to be the most accurate of all of them.
All right. Sounds good. I see Bill in the audience as a listener. He's welcome to come up and chat about Tesla or Berkshire Hathaway. First time he's coming into Tesla Live, and we'd love to have him on the speaker board. Anyway, so Dallas, let's kind of continue with this election talk a little bit. Omar is here too. This is the topic of the day, right? We have a lot to talk about. So today we're going to talk about BYD versus Tesla. We have some October sales numbers announced. I want to dig into BYD's AI efforts as well. And now we're going to talk about Boston Dynamics versus Optimus. When Alexander is ready to chat about that, he's welcome to come up to speaker board. And I think he's got the details on that. And then a couple of news around BYD and the automotive industry in general. But obviously, the topic of the day is elections. Tomorrow is the elections. And I want to kind of understand from a Tesla perspective how people are thinking about it. Omar, welcome.
Hey, happy election eve.
Happy election eve. Do you feel like you're on Christmas Eve?
Not exactly, but I guess there is some similarity there.
Yeah. You didn't place your cookies and milk on the by the tree, by the election tree. One glass of milk for Kamala Harris and one for Trump.
Diet Coke.
I'll have to do that tonight.
Hey Dallas, let me ask you something. Give me one reason. So Dallas, I think you have potential to become like this devil's advocate in this space. I think we need better bears. The bears that have been coming into space are just not doing a good job, and we need people who totally understand Tesla and this space to kind of argue the other side every now and then. So can you give me one reason why Tesla investors should vote for Trump and one reason why they should vote for Harris?
I'm trying to put away my own personal beliefs. So I guess objectively, I guess starting with Trump, I think we saw the worst inflation we've seen in modern day history under the Harris, I call it the Harris Biden, but the Biden Harris campaign. And, you know, hyperinflation in the United States is never good for any American corporation. And the current administration puts other nations' well being in front of our own. So just as a shareholder in a corporation that is extremely, you know, unfortunately now tied to a campaign, which I'm not a huge fan of that, but it is what it is. I think it's beneficial for Tesla shareholders, obviously, as we all would agree, if the Trump administration were to win this election.
Dallas, this is not what I asked for. I need one sentence why Tesla investors should vote for Trump. So you start with Tesla investors should vote for Trump because one sentence, and then Tesla investors should vote for Harris because one more sentence. That's it, two sentences.
I didn't hear the one sentence portion. You're correct. So I guess I would say the Tesla investors should vote for Trump because hyperinflation is not good for investors. And Tesla investors should vote for Harris because the rhetoric would probably tone down in this country. At this point, I think if he loses, he goes away, right? So that would be a benefit for Harris voters.
Okay. Thank you, Dallas, for giving me your best shots. I sorry to put you on the spot. Actually, I'm not sorry. This is what it takes to be on the speaker board. Dallas is one of our most improved speakers for sure. JC, since you're laughing, you're next. Tesla investors should vote for Trump because, and then Tesla investors should vote for Harris because.
Tesla investors should vote for Trump because of the last 4 years administration's what it looks like to me a takedown of Elon Musk, who is Tesla. Tesla investors should vote for Kamala because, again, I agree with Dallas. The rhetoric, I think the rhetoric would come down. I don't agree that Trump will go away. Trump's like a tortoise; he'll be around for years and years. If he doesn't win, he'll run again in 2028.
All right. Robert, would you like to go next?
Tesla investors should like Trump because it would help Tesla investors. Tesla investors should like Kamala because the women and their families could get the health care that they need when raising a family.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Hustletown, you're up next. Then Ellie, then Omar.
All right. Tesla investors should vote for Trump because it is seemingly like Elon Musk is going to be heavily involved in this administration. Tesla investors should vote for Kamala because that administration won't be nearly as volatile. There'll be a lot of consistency with the Harris administration, and with that, hopefully, would come good economic tidings.
Interesting. Yeah, it looks like the three people said basically the same thing for Tesla investors should vote for Harris side of the devil's advocate equation here, conversation here. That it would be less volatile, the politics would become less volatile and become the rhetoric will go down. Let's go to Ellie, then Omar.
So I think Tesla investors should vote for Trump because Biden administration did not invite Tesla to the convention that they had in the White House. And I think Tesla investors should vote for Kamala because the Democratic Party is favor of EVs.
Okay. Yeah, if you're in the audience watching on YouTube Live, please let me know in live chat what you think. Tesla investors should vote for Trump because one sentence, and then Tesla investors should vote for Harris because one sentence. So I have a balanced conversation here, and Kevin King has a humorous one. Tesla investors should vote for Kamala if they want to buy shares at a lower price. That was funny, I thought. Well, besides the point of this conversation, but funny nonetheless. Ken House in YouTube live chat says Tesla investors will be better off because lawfare against Elon is almost certain if Kamala Harris wins. Omar, what do you think?
I think that 90% of their actions will probably be the same regardless. The election actually matters a lot less than people think. People go, Kamala is gonna save abortion rights. Well, Biden's the president now, right? So he can't reverse the Supreme Court decision unless they want to pass new legislation, and they can't do that either. Congress needs to do that, right? So it's a story, right? And then they go, oh well, Trump would do a national abortion ban. He said, I'm not in favor of that. I just think it should be handled by the states. Big story, lots of emotion, lots of fighting. In reality, same policy outcome. Okay. And you can see that really in, sort of many areas. So, vote for Trump if you want less regulation, government getting off Elon's back, or just to listen to Elon, just listening to him, and he says, hey, vote for this guy. I need this guy to be in charge. If you're just wanting to support him, you can just say, okay, well, this is the guy. He says it's going to be less regulation. He says it's going to be easier for him to get to Mars. He's the one who's dealing with them all day.
Yeah.
The Democrats are generally more EV positive and less supportive of fossil fuels. But at the same time, a lot of their quote unquote pro EV policies have actually been pretty harmful to EVs. So I think this administration in particular has been a big disappointment in that regard.
Thanks, Omar. We have varying views in this space on X, on the speaker board, in the replies, in YouTube live chat. I want it that way. Is that Backstreet Boys or NSYNC? I want it that way. Anyway, Zachary Pernick-Liskey on YouTube live chat says, by the way, he super chatted $10. Thank you, Zachary. A great supporter of Tesla Live over the years. Zachary says, sport EVs and renewable energy subsidies, vote Democratic. It's about $18,000 worth of subsidies per vehicle we're going to lose if Trump wins. Omar, what do you think about that? And now we're going to go to a couple of the people who have their hands up.
So I think first off, you really want to look at the overall economic environment. EV sales are not just a function of how much money the government is giving. Economic conditions, unemployment, inflation, interest rates, these things all have an impact. And just go take a look at the growth rate of Tesla during the Trump administration versus the Biden Harris administration. Even when Tesla had no credits, they still grew, quite strongly. I think the current EV tax credits are a disaster for the industry because of the overly complicated, stricter every year proposals. If you look at the actual number of tax credits claimed, it's far lower than a lot of people suggested. They looked at total US sales. Turns out it's more like 25% of US sales. So it's made EVs more affordable in some ways. I've taken advantage of it. but it's a noose around the industry's neck. And if that provision is gone, costs will actually fall for electric vehicles because it's very costly, on the order of thousands of dollars, to comply with the regulation and qualify for the credit.
Thanks, Omar. And thank you, everybody on YouTube, for letting me know your code check numbers. I appreciate it. We're up to 140 likes already. Thank you very much, everybody. Robert, go ahead.
Elon's going to win no matter who wins tomorrow. Nobody is going to call Tesla a woke company from now on. And when I worked with Ford, I learned from the Ford executives that conservatives buy a lot more trucks than liberals do. And when I spoke at Google's first advertising conference, I learned that conservatives click on ads and buy things off ads at a far higher rate than liberals do. So this is a big, it doesn't matter. Now Elon has positioned Tesla for the rest of America that isn't very liberal.
Dallas.
I think Omar had a good point, right? Like at the end of the day, these candidates have distanced themselves as far as possible and will tell you that they're as different as possible, which I do agree with that to a degree. But my point here is Tesla's going to continue innovating. They're going to continue building the greatest on earth. They're going to continue working on the software innovations with FSD. I think the only thing that will hold them back under a Harris campaign is regulation. And I think Elon has painted a decent sized target on his back by hitching his trailer to the Trump horse. And my only concern, and I guess a question for you, Omar, is how big of an impact do you think there will be on Tesla in the short term if Harris does end up winning because of Elon hitching himself to Trump?
You know, Harris, and Elon's writing these tweets. They're gonna arrest me. The Democrats. Da, 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 da. There'll probably be a few more slaps on the wrist under a Harris administration, but she doesn't strike me as somebody who is vindictive or is going to personally hold a grudge like that. Personally, she is from Oakland, the Bay Area. That's where Tesla was started. Tesla's Fremont factory there is a major employer. I'm sure everybody she knows in the Bay Area has a Tesla. I don't think that necessarily she's going to try and arrest Elon or anything like that. The justice system, of course, allows you to defend yourself. So even if, a malicious government were to bring about charges, you have the opportunity to defend yourself, to be acquitted by a jury of your peers. So, probably they would face more lawsuits, more legal action than under a Trump administration, but nothing I think that is going to be debilitating to Elon or the company. I think that they probably recognize the importance of Tesla, probably, even more than Trump to some extent, just based on being Democrats, being from the Bay Area. So I don't think it would be necessarily a disaster scenario where Tesla dies and Elon goes to jail. But you'd see likely more lawsuits, more federal intervention, more prodding from NHTSA, that type of stuff.
Thanks, Omar. Drew Soul on YouTube live chat says, if Elon has Trump's ear, I can see the EV subsidies end. And I would be curious if Elon would push to end the gas subsidies as well. Both cuts help Tesla. Thanks, Drew, for the $5 super chat. Uzi.
Yeah, I've been watching a decent amount of Trump rallies and some Harris ones. I think the main policy proposals is the new car lease tax credit for Made in America cars. I think that really helps Tesla. I haven't heard much about taking away the subsidy, but what I have heard is removing the EV mandate, which seems to be the clearest they've been on that. I will say though that on the other side, Harris has not talked about Elon at all, but Tim Walz has, and he has called him a quote unquote dipshit, and some other terms this weekend. So if there's anything that is divisive, or there's a lot of rhetoric, it is on the left lately in terms of reference to Elon. But I don't think a Harris victory will mean the end of Elon. I don't think he's going to jail. I agree with Omar's assessment that there's just more government intervention and lawfare.
Jimmy.
It is, in my opinion, that under Trump, they will keep the EV tax credit. It will probably get cut in half. And under the Harris administration, Tesla will lose the tax credit and they'll give it only to legacy automakers to have them catch up on their crappy EVs. And it will fail, but it doesn't matter because government always bails out Ford and GM.
All right, Hustleton had an earlier comment on YouTube live chat and said Supreme Court could change quite a bit in 4 years. Hustleton, would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, we're a government of checks and balances, but if you look at the last appointees for Supreme Court, Trump had a significant amount. Now we've got, you know, life's weird. So at any point in time, we could lose 1, 2, maybe 3 Supreme Court justices. Whoever's in office, that's what's going to, change things for the women's rights, right? Women's rights to choose and whatnot, and various different other things. So whoever is in office may not be able to change it. Like Biden's in office now and he can't protect women's bodies apparently. But if you are able to appoint new Supreme Court justices, that could change.
Okay, so a specific prediction there is you're kind of saying this is possible to change. Like you don't expect any of them to kind of, retire or die or anything.
No one's going to retire. They just die on the bench first and foremost. But it's 4 years. Anything can happen. We could have another pandemic or whatever, but you never know.
Kelly.
So I have a question. It might be a stupid one. What does it take? Let's say that Kamala Harris will win. What does it take for her to come up and say, I acknowledge that Tesla is a big American company and we love Tesla as all other American companies that provide work and all that stuff. When it comes to electric cars, not just out of the blue talk about Tesla. What does it take for her to say that? Should Elon, I don't know, come and say, well, it was all a sport, it's politics. I was in favor of Trump, but now that it's over, let's say, I don't know, like things could change if she's win and she will. I think you understand what I'm asking.
Omar?
Yeah, I mean, if I were Kamala Harris and I were elected, the first call I would make when I got into the Oval Office was to Elon Musk. And I would say, listen, what can I do to make sure that in the 2028 election, when I'm facing re-election, we don't have you fighting against us like you did in 2024? Can we get you on that government efficiency panel? I mean, how is there even anything we can do on the regulatory side for SpaceX and Tesla that would make your life easier? I'm your president. I want to work with you. Thank you for the amazing contributions to our country that your companies represent. You're leading 100,000 people. That's what I would do. And she's not Joe Biden, right? I mean, people say, oh, Biden, Harris, they never knew each other before. She's a completely different person. Now, of course, as the vice president, you have to go along with whatever the president wants to do, but we don't know necessarily what her opinion is. She's not going to sort of publicly break with the president at this point, but it's a new person. It's the possibility of a new chapter. Now, I don't know if she's actually going to do that. Maybe she'll just kind of continue the same sort of policies we've seen under Biden. But that's what I would do strategically. I would try and make peace. And hopefully they can do that. I mean, it's really difficult to predict the possible outcomes, like what's better. So Harris, how is Harris going to lead? What kind of policies are we going to see? Is the economy going to be good, bad?
Let's actually dig into that a little bit. So we can look into maybe 3 buckets of each one's by the time this space is over, I want Tesla investors to have a complete understanding of what each candidate represents for Tesla, a type of future that each candidate represents. And I understand it's mostly going to be probably the same, mostly, but there's going to be differences. Right? It's not going to be 100% the same. The future is going to be 100% the same, depending on which candidate gets selected. So maybe we can look at 3 buckets. 1, AI and automation. 2, tariffs. 3, inflation, and kind of like a regulatory aspect to all, each 3 of them. Omar, what do you think about AI and automation between Trump and Harris?
Sorry, on what aspect?
AI and automation. So let's say Tesla's efforts around FSD and Optimus. For that topic specifically, subtopic specifically, which candidate would be better and why?
Democrats in general and the Democratic administration are typically more focused on a more active role for the government and government safety agencies, government doing more, really focusing on safety, even if it slows the companies down. Republican administrations and Trump in particular tend to be more focused on letting businesses just do what they need to do, supporting businesses, supporting entrepreneurship, supporting innovation, and having a looser regulatory structure. So, which is better? Some might argue, well, actually, a more active role in the government could be better because it could reduce accidents, whatever. Another side might argue, well, actually, a looser regulatory structure might be better if the companies are being responsible because there's less red tape slowing them down. So personally, I'd probably go on the Republican side on that one for which one I think would be better.
Okay. Hassan, I see you dropped a reply in live chat. What do you think?
I just think the Democrats have a better grasp on what's going on with Silicon Valley, being from California and all that. Regulation is necessary, but I think there's so much that isn't like that isn't very much well known. Our government is like ages old, right? Like everybody's 60 plus. Having the Democrats in there, one, she's younger. She'll probably have a younger administration. I just think that the Harris administration will be better for AI and automation.
Interesting. So we have 2 opposing views now on the board. Let's see what Uzi has to say. Uzi?
Yeah, well, I'm from New York, but I don't know finance, right? So like where you're from does not necessarily teach you the subject, right? I will say for AI, the big bottleneck right now that we're foreseeing is energy, and Trump focuses on like the term is like the liquid gold under our feet. And so I think that will help with that bottleneck as much as we don't like that, non-renewable resources. And then I think in terms of automation, Omar hit it on the that Republicans are more laissez-faire. I would say FSD would be better off with a Republican, Congress and executive where, um, the incentive towards growth and efficiency is higher than government intervention.
Dallas, then Robert.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to one person, and I hate to keep going back to this, but Elon being as close as he is to Trump and the fact that he's going to accept a role as kind of a, I don't know, a consultant or whatever they're going to call him, right? I think Elon's view of AI and the future of AI and how there needs to be oversight, but it can't be hindering to innovation. It's more there for a safety apparatus. I think he's enough in and of itself to say that the Republican ticket being Trump would be better for the AI front in the next 4 years.
Robert?
I want to look at Detroit because Detroit is going to face a really tough next decade. And we all see it coming. Detroit can't innovate fast enough for a whole lot of reasons, and that's going to cause them deep problems. Who's going to be better for Detroit? I don't think either party is going to be good for them, although they're very closely tied to the Democratic Party. They really funded the Democratic Party for decades from Detroit, and that's why they didn't invite, why the Democrats didn't invite Elon to the party. I just don't see good stuff happening for Detroit, but I think we need a national conversation about what to do about the workers that are going to get laid off, because VW just laid off 30,000 people in Germany because of this problem, and it's going to continue, and it's going to come home to our home front.
Thank you, Robert. Hustletown.
Yeah, I just don't get on board with looser regulation being good for automation, especially when it comes to FSD. We kind of want the data to speak for itself. We want, if it's just willy-nilly and then somebody gets hurt, I think everybody knows what happened to Cruz. We don't want that to happen with Tesla FSD. I don't think they'll ever let that happen. But looser regulation isn't what we need. We need to knock it down in the face of rigorous regulation.
Hustletown, Hollis in YouTube live chat says, Hustletown, please, you are so wrong. I can help you.
I'm willing to take any help. You know, I love having my opinions combated, so I'll take anything.
Okay, good. I just really appreciate all these fun comments in YouTube live chat. And Amy, thank you very much for letting me know your code check number 167. We are halfway into the space. Good amount of participation both on X and YouTube today. Tesla Live is growing. We're now available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. And I want to say a quick word of thank you to our sponsors. Tesla Live is hosted on a laptop provided by Paymore, so that I don't have to worry about putting ice water on my laptop to keep it cool, and I can focus on the discussion. You can visit Paymore at one of their stores near you or check them out online at paymore.com. You can buy the latest gadgets, sell or trade in your used electronics for hard cash or store credit, and recycle your old and broken devices responsibly. And Tesla Live is also proudly sponsored by Jowa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. Use the promo code TSLA Live at checkout to receive a special discount on your next purchase. Thank you, Jowa and Paymore, for supporting Tesla Live and making technology accessible and sustainable for everyone. All right. Kevin King says on AI and automation, Trump and Elon, union members will fight back against automation and are big donors to the left. Optimus bots don't vote and don't contribute to politicians. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Optimus is probably an area where the future can differ quite a bit when it comes to the elections here, the results of these elections. So we should be mindful of that. And as Elon said, the majority of the intrinsic value of Tesla is going to depend on the Optimus project. Uzi.
Yeah, but Optimus isn't, a relevant, a material part of Tesla's business right now. So no one's voting like in terms of that. I think next election cycle, you might have a
Yeah,
popular
Uzi,
sponsorship.
I think these absolute statements like no one's voting on this and that. Like you don't obviously know every single person. You haven't talked to thousands of people, what they vote for, what they vote against, right?
Well, should we do a poll? Like, I don't really know.
Okay, we're gonna move on to talk about Optimus. Boston Dynamics came out with a video that seems to be catching some interest. Omar, did you see this video? Some people have indicated that Boston Dynamics, as usual, is really ahead of everybody else. Let me actually pull up this tweet I saw that kind of made me chuckle a little bit, and is a good reason why you should be liking and subscribing to Tesla Live, because of all this misinformation that's running around on Boston Dynamics and Waymo. Here's the post at the top of our screens. Chris Paxton says, as usual, Boston Dynamics blows everyone else away when it comes to autonomous demos. Using a mixture of detection models and specialized grasping policies, no end-to-end stuff. This post is now also on YouTube in front of your screens as well. Omar, what do you think about this?
Yeah, so I think it's great that Boston Dynamics is now moving from a hydraulically actuated Atlas robot to an electrically actuated Atlas robot, this is a big step forward. So they're kind of following Optimus's lead on that. They made the change after Tesla announced the Optimus program. So there are indications that they're making moves to have a more competent entry into this space. They're obviously a company that's been doing robotics for decades, but they're also a company that has never really made a consumer grade product. Their Spot robot dog costs, $75,000 to start. And, that's a dog as opposed to a humanoid, which is much more complex. So they are not a company that has ever really been a product company, a manufacturing company, or an AI company. They are a company that's worked on robotics hardware, mostly in a research sort of setting, just kind of to advance robotics. And that's why Google got rid of it, is they're like, we don't know how to make this a business anytime soon. But they've got some pretty cool robots. I assume they would be looking to sort of commercialize this. On the AI side, it looks to be really using more classical computer vision techniques, sort of object detection, segmentation. You can see the movements are much more robotic compared to what we experienced at the We Robot event, where you had those robots dancing or moving. The range of motion on the Optimus, I think, was far more impressive. The Atlas robot moves in some more unnatural ways. It can kind of rotate, which is kind of interesting. But if you also just see all the marks on the robot on the front, the damage to it, that tells you a little bit of a story of it took a lot of takes to get to this video, and this thing is falling over commonly. They're pushing it, and you can kind of see those scuff marks on it. As a sort of contrast, Tesla's sort of trying to train a much more advanced robot brain, and they have these facilities like the new Tesla Cortex facility in Texas with 50,000 GPUs that support this. I'm not sure where Boston Dynamics 50,000 GPU cluster is, but maybe they're renting it from the cloud or something, from one of the major cloud providers. But they don't seem to be really kind of looking at this from a LLM end-to-end sort of perspective, where for the Tesla bot, the way they train it is just by showing humans doing the task through motion capture, and then it's just able to emulate that. So this is
Yeah.
actually what you're seeing is far more task specific and a sort of older machine learning approach compared to, I think, what Tesla's doing, which is much more ambitious and would allow you to have a general purpose robot that could do many tasks with
Yeah.
one foundation model.
Thank you, Omar. Wes Wallen is in YouTube live chat. Says you can ask him any AI or FSD related questions in live chat, and don't forget to tag him, and he'll answer. Wes Wallen used to work at Tesla on the autopilot team. Thank you, Wes, for doing this. I really appreciate that. So you can head over to the YouTube channel through the link at the top of our screens. And Alexander is the one that alerted me to this post at the top of our screens as well by Chris Paxton. And Alexander is on the board right now. Maybe give us an overview of his observations, Alexander.
Yeah, as Omar said, they are using a traditional machine learning model for this. This is not like Optimus, which is using teleoperation to learn the tasks. So machine learning models, I don't think they can do much more complex tasks with this kind of approach. Because when you use teleoperation, you can actually teach the robot to do more complex tasks. And it feels like Atlas moves pretty fast, but more like a drunk person, where Optimus moves a bit slower but has more precision. So it seems to me like Boston Dynamics traded precision for speed.
Thank you, Alexander. Ellie, and then I have some specific questions for Alexander.
So we always see those videos. I'm just curious to ask Alexander or maybe Omar or anyone else. Do they have a mission statement for us at that point?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. What is Boston Dynamics trying to do with Atlas, Omar?
I'm not sure, to be honest. My guess would be they want to make an Optimus competitor, right? Like, how stupid would they look if Tesla were to come out with a robot and they, the robotics company that has been making these videos for years, didn't have anything? So they must be trying to compete with Optimus, but really, to get a real product, right? To get a real successful product, first of all, you have to deliver cost, you have to be able to manufacture at scale. But a demo video and actually working in the real world, as we've learned in AI, are very, very different. I mean, we've seen videos of zero intervention FSD drives for years. Does that mean we're going to be able to send a car out without a driver? No, there's a lot more work involved than just having one drive that works perfectly. Similarly, having one demo video, but you can see this robot scratched up from falling on its face so many times. How is this going to adapt to changes in the environment? In a real factory, there's no perfect little box where the robot can just kind of be in. There's other people, there's things moving around, there's stuff happening. Someone knocks over that cart, now it's in a little bit different location. The light's hitting it a little differently. How can the robot respond to all of this? And that's what that cortex cluster and these end-to-end models are really all about. It
Yeah.
is a lot more expensive, but you get a real robot brain instead of these more primitive computer vision systems.
Thanks, Omar. Alexander, then Dallas.
Yeah, and I don't think they are running local inference on the robot itself. It actually has an antenna on its head, so I don't know how scalable that is in the real world.
Okay, that's actually a good segue. Dallas, let's get what you have to say first. Dallas?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that 80% of Boston Dynamics is owned by Hyundai. So I wouldn't say that manufacturing is going to be their problem. I would say it's more on the AI front. Like Omar just brought up a great point. Cortex, Boston Dynamics has nothing even close to that. So that I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. I actually didn't know Hyundai owned 80% of Boston Dynamics. That's news to me. So thank you, Dallas. Alexander, Omar?
Yeah, Boston Dynamics is a company that is located in Waltham, Massachusetts, in the Boston area, hence the name. And they've been an independent robotics company. They were founded in 1992. They were then acquired by Google. Google owned them for a number of years, and then it sold it to Hyundai, which is a Korean company. So obviously, they are owned by a company that is a manufacturer. That probably is going to be helpful. But they are separate companies. It was an acquisition. But yeah, they are now mostly owned by Hyundai.
Thank you. Wes Wallen is answering FSD questions in YouTube live chat. Shane Raygard asks, what causes the massive difference in FSD behavior from day to day on the exact same roads and routes? And if you want the answer to that question, you can head over to YouTube live chat through the link at the top of our screens. Alexander, switching back to continue with our conversation on Optimus versus Boston Dynamics, do you have the specific sensors that Atlas uses, and how does that differ from what Optimus use?
No, I do not.
Okay, does anyone on the board have an understanding of what Boston Dynamics, the specific sensors that Boston Dynamics uses? No one? Okay. We'll keep that as a...
Wait
go
a
ahead.
minute. I think I have it. Let's see. I'm just gonna scroll through my notes here. It says the robot is able to detect and react to changes in its environment, action failures, tripping, environment collisions, by using combination of vision, force, and sensors. So it has some kind of force sensors on the actuators, I guess, and then some other sensors that it doesn't mention what it is.
Okay, thank you. Ellie?
Question for you, Alexander. So from the previous videos that we saw, all the parkour, all the tricks that Atlas could manage, that suggests that basically the actuators and all the motors are very strong, right? That Atlas was very strong bot, and whatever we saw now, it's more agile, right? More like Optimus, I might say. So that's basically more cheap version, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to be less accurate than Optimus. It moves faster, but it seems like miss a lot because it took engine covers and moved it from one box to another, and the kind of boxes they use were like they used like soft fabric, so and it kind of missed the box when it tried to put the engine cover in. So it seems like it doesn't have that precision that it needs.
Okay. Well, my question for you, Dallas earlier said Hyundai owns 80% of Boston Dynamics, and therefore Boston Dynamics may not have a problem scaling this robot. Do you agree with that statement?
Scaling a robot is complex no matter who you are. Being owned by a major manufacturer of millions of cars certainly helps. I mean, they have experience with manufacturing. So it helps to be owned by them, but ultimately it's still a separate company on the other side of the world. And they are, going to work together. But it remains a challenge. I mean, no one's ever scaled production of robots to a cost level that's affordable to an average person or even an average business.
Yeah, and I don't think we've heard anything from Boston Dynamics about ambitions to scale this to millions of robots level. So far as I know, it's only Optimus that Tesla has been talking about every step of the way about the scale of the project and one other company. Robert?
Scale goes way beyond just manufacturing. You have to build a brand that people want to buy. You have to be better than the competition to build that brand. And what's the chances that Boston Dynamics is going to compete with Elon's AI investments? He has hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA cards. That is a huge advantage. Boston Dynamics doesn't have that. And then even if they did, how are they going to build the brand? Let's say I run a little factory building baseball bats or something like that, and I want to buy 10 robots. Which one am I going to buy? The Boston Dynamics, the Figure, the Optimus, or some other Chinese brand or something else? I don't see how they win. I don't see how they win those contracts.
Great, thank you very much. And that was my next question too, Robert. Thank you. Do we know anything about their customers so far? Alexander, any color on who Boston Dynamics is supplying Optimus, Atlas?
Probably somebody that makes engines because they move engine covers. So some kind of ice brand, I suppose.
Okay, but we don't have any publicly announced customers for Atlas at this point. Is my
Not
take.
what I've seen.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, these are the kind of key, like we don't have to find the answers to these questions today, but these are the kind of things that I would kind of keep an eye on. Ability to train AI, ability to manufacture at scale, and millions of Optimus. Any sort of cost considerations. What are their sensors? What is their purpose? As Ellie just mentioned, what's their strategy? What kind of verticals they are targeting? These are the kind of things I would keep an eye on as we discuss Optimus versus Figure AI versus Boston Dynamics. Robert?
One other thing to think about is even if Boston Dynamics pulled it out and completely eviscerated Optimus and won most of the contracts, how is that going to get to the factory? How's that going to get to your house? A Tesla. So Elon's going to win even if he loses on the Optimus side of the business sheet. And I don't think he's going to lose there, but even if he does, he wins.
Thank you, Robert. Dallas, and then we're going to move on to the next topic.
Yeah, just a little speculation here. I would say, Boston Dynamics in my mind is going to go kind of the Anduril route, Palmer Luckey's defense contractor company. I see them going the military route and making a bunch of money off military contracts.
All right, thank you, Dallas. Let's talk about BYD a little bit. BYD versus Tesla. Similar to the Optimus versus Atlas discussion we just had, does anyone on the board know exactly BYD's efforts around AI? Which supplier they use for their ADAS hardware and software? How their ADAS compares to Tesla FSD today? Any sort of announced partnerships? Anyone on the board other than Omar? Yeah, we need better capability. We need to kind of understand these things. I'm going to be more diligent and purposeful and structured about preparing for these spaces from now on about specific questions we're going to cover. And like these are the things that we should be able to answer. Like every single speaker needs to be answered right away, you know. And we'll get there over time. Ellie?
So I'm not sure about what you asked, but I can just provide some other details because Zeekr do work with ZF, the company from Germany. So I guess it's just safe to assume that ZF working with maybe some other players in China.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Omar, question for you. What do you think about BYD's efforts on ADAS, FSD? So far, obviously, BYD is doing really well. They just announced their October sales numbers. They delivered more than 500,000 vehicles globally in October alone. And the target for Tesla for Q4 is somewhere around there, 520,000. And but on the other hand, majority, more than 60% of their deliveries are PHEVs, plug-in hybrids, and EREVs, extended range vehicles, which is just another, sort of hybrid. And the pure EV deliveries of Tesla is actually greater than BYD. To my knowledge, BYD doesn't really have any concrete plans around how they're going to get to autonomy. They're not even talking about it. About a year ago, their CEO said something along the lines of autonomy is a pipe dream, indicating that they're not even trying. But have you heard of any sort of announced partnerships from BYD?
I mean, BYD isn't particularly known for their AI efforts. They're primarily a really strong manufacturer of batteries and electric vehicles. So they supply batteries to Tesla. They delivered 1.1 million vehicles in the most recent quarter. So they're an incredible company based out of Shenzhen, which is just an incredible place as well for technology and the technology supply chain there, the free trade zone there. But yeah, they don't really have any notable AI efforts. They're really just focused on being an extremely low cost manufacturer, and they're excelling at that for sure.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about their manufacturing efforts too. But I really want to kind of understand, they haven't been known for their AI efforts, but I think at some point, all of these automakers are going to realize that they have to be a player when it comes to FSD, autonomy, robotaxis. Otherwise, they're going to be, they're going to go obsolete. And so let's keep an eye out for BYDs or Zeekr's or anybody else's announcements, partnerships, suppliers, ADAS features going forward. It's going to be a topic in Tesla Live. Ellie?
Yeah, a comment and a question. So, I mean, the comment is about Waymo and Tesla, obviously. So, if FSD will be licensed by other companies, I guess that's one option. Waymo will be the second. I guess question back for you is if FSD will be licensed by other companies, do you think BYD will be a customer?
Yeah, that's a great question because I think it's probably one of the companies that will want to work with Tesla, given their relationship already around batteries. But on the other hand, I think, like, I kind of disagree with Omar a little bit on how easy it would be to implement FSD on non-Tesla vehicles. I think it may take a few years to implement rather than 1 to 2 years. Omar, do you have any updated thoughts around that? How easy it would be to implement FSD, say, on a BYD vehicle in China?
Well, BYD, I think, their existing ADAS solutions on cars that have it are just licensed from other companies like Mobileye or Nvidia. I'm not sure who exactly they're working with, but they've just licensed it from somebody. I think they definitely could license FSD in the future. FSD is much simpler to integrate than Waymo or any other solution on the market because you just put some cameras around the vehicle and you're good to go. Obviously, the development cycle of new cars is typically around 3 years. For a Chinese manufacturer, maybe as little as 1.5 to 2 years. But it would take a few years just to obviously design a new car with the cameras, with the computer, validate it, make sure the models work. Cybertruck took quite a few months to get Cybertruck FSD going. So you factor in all of that, and if they made a deal today and started working on it, they could probably have something out in maybe 2028.
Okay, great. BYD is also an interesting topic around autonomy because BYD is obviously the most vertically integrated automaker when it comes to batteries, except for Tesla. And Tesla's trying to get to that point too, producing its own 4680 batteries. And I wonder if they're going to want to, at some point, go the vertical integration route when it comes to autonomy as well. So something to keep an eye on around BYD. Before we switch to manufacturing of BYD and talk about unbox process, quick shout out to those of you who take action to like, subscribe, and share Tesla Live on YouTube. We are now at 193 likes. Please take a moment to go to the YouTube channel through the link at the top of our screens. Give it a like. It really matters growing the channel. And let's see if we can get to 200 in short order here. All right. On the unbox process, so somebody in the reply said Tesla's unbox process is going to be a major differentiator in China when Tesla implements that with the next gen vehicle. Omar, first of all, do you agree with that statement? And then secondly, how difficult would it be for BYD to say, you know what, we're going to do that too, and just copy the process?
Yeah, BYD is a very different manufacturer than Tesla. They use very different production methods, often far more focused on just manually making parts rather than using a lot of automation. So I think BYD has copied elements of Tesla's production process in the past, like castings for certain vehicles. Certainly, like the structural pack that they've shipped on some of their vehicles. So I think there definitely could be elements that they could copy if they find that it works, but also the production process is very different. Just look at the number of employees they have working in production versus Tesla and the number of cars, and it's it's a pretty big difference.
Thank you very much. Does anybody on the speaker board want to chime in on that topic? Whether it would be easy or difficult for BYD to copy Tesla's unboxed manufacturing process? And specifically, what would be the limiting factor to do that? Robert, any thoughts around that?
BYD, when you visit a Chinese factory, they already are pretty efficient, but the older manufacturers rely a lot on the human labor that they have. They have so many people. The newer ones, the Xiaomi's and the Neos, are the ones that I'm looking at for being more innovative on manufacturing and staying up to date or ahead of Tesla. Xiaomi has a completely automated factory, for instance, building its new car. And that's the car that Ford's CEO drove for a month and said he didn't want to give it up. That's the competition.
Thank you, Robert. Jerusalem, thank you very much for gifting one membership to the YouTube channel. This membership will be assigned automatically to the most engaged person on the channel. So likes, subscribes, comments, engagement, live chat, shares, all matter. And YouTube automatically assigns this free membership by Drew. Omar?
Yeah, so Tesla has about 140,000 employees. As of the end of 2023, BYD had 704,000 employees, including 524,000 production staff and 104,000 technicians. And that was an increase of 200,000 employees. So in 1 year, this year, 2024, BYD has added more employees than Tesla has total. 200,000 employees, Tesla has 140,000, and that would bring their total up to 900,000. There are more people working at BYD and producing BYD cars than the population of the entire city of San Francisco.
That's incredible. So you believe that's going to be a limited factor on applying manufacturing innovations going forward, whether it's Unbox process or Optimus or maybe both?
It's just different, right? So we live in a different world here in America. If we want to be competitive, it's through inventing something new, putting in some machinery because we have access to capital, that type of thing. In China, what works for just making really low cost vehicles is just hiring 1 million people and making stuff by hand. So, you know, it's kind of insane, but clearly it's working for them. They've kind of figured something out there. So there have been some issues with this approach. One of the issues has been quality, and they've had some issues in the past where, things aren't done right. They've even had issues with batteries in the past. They've improved on that quite a bit. But that's sort of one downfall of doing everything by hand. Um, there are, other sort of issues. It can make it more difficult to change. It's not obviously like they're producing these vehicles the way Tesla is. Gigafactory Shanghai is, far more advanced, and you can see some of these videos on social media of BYD's factories. It's a completely different story. But it's an approach that's allowed them to make many different models of cars, right? Whereas with large capital investments required for models, it's harder to make as many models. They can change them up. They can make all these different versions of the same car, make cars for different markets. And that's been a key part of how they've scaled to the volumes you're seeing.
Thank you very much. Just a quick note to speakers. I just sent you a StreamYard link in the DM group, speakers DM group. You're welcome to join me on StreamYard and have your camera open and everything. In the first half hour, we discussed politics, tomorrow's US elections. In the second half hour, we discussed Optimus versus Boston Dynamics Atlas project. And we're now discussing Tesla versus BYD. And then I'm going to try something new today. Towards the end of this episode, in about half hour or so, I'm going to go 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes exclusive on YouTube to grow that channel. We really need to get that channel to 10,000 subscribers ASAP. And I'm going to answer questions from YouTube live chat for about 10, 15 minutes at the end of this episode. You can reach the channel through the link at the top of our screens. And I may or may not have my camera on. We'll see. Ellie.
So pure speculation on my part, but do you think there's any chance that Warren Buffett selling BYD because they might be talking about AI or autonomy in the future, and he's not want to, he doesn't want to be part of something so complicated?
Ellie, you read my mind because that was my next question. Warren Buffett has sold most of its BYD holdings. Warren Buffett has sold most of his BYD holdings. We're talking billions and billions of dollars over the last 2 years. I think he took some time to sell his stake because it's an illiquid market and he didn't want to move. He didn't want to scare people off, but he's out most of it. So, and I wonder why. Because BYD, from a market share perspective, number of sales perspective, profitability perspective, is doing better than ever. I wonder if it has something to do with geopolitics or Tesla's efforts around FSD or something else. Omar, what do you think?
Yeah, certainly since 2016, with the Trump administration, tensions between US and China have been rising. You've seen actions by the US government to take actions against China. You've seen actions by the Chinese government at times, um, doing things that aren't necessarily so great for foreign investment. The IPO of Didi comes to mind, and I think is really burned in people's memory, where they took action against Didi for the U.S. listing. So there, I think, would be reasons for Berkshire Hathaway to be concerned that either escalating tensions between the US or some new tariff, some new policy on the Chinese side could risk their ability to sort of get their capital out of this investment at a later date.
Thank you. So Omar believes that maybe there's some geopolitics risks here, maybe some possibility of rising tax rates or tariffs in selling BYD. But it's interesting that he's also selling Apple at a very rapid pace, and he's also selling Bank of America. So these are two of his biggest holdings. He's been kind of unloading for a record amount of cash of more than $300 billion as of September 30th. And it's probably more today. And another thing to consider here is that he did not buy back his shares. I think he has a rule of thumb about when he would be buying Berkshire Hathaway shares, and he didn't do so in Q3. I believe, even though that rule of thumb is valid throughout Q3. So interesting discussion here. Dallas, what do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a lot of that's over my head. That's kind of why I've been sidelined on this conversation. I did have a question for Omar, though, on BYD, if that's okay.
No, if it's over your head, like as a permanent speaker here, I think just ask questions. Like what part of it is over your head?
I'm just a little confused on why, like, having people build the products would make the quality go down. I understand that their labor laws are a lot different than ours, and I get the fact that mass-produced things where the workers are working all night long is probably not cohesive to a quality product. But is that really the only reason that quality is down compared to Tesla?
I mean, people sometimes make mistakes. The machine tends to do things the same every time. I mean, a machine can have quality issues too if the machine isn't doing it right. But sometimes someone's distracted or they're sleepy or something and they make a mistake. You can really have great quality processes and make sure that you catch those mistakes and you can do things to prevent it. But that is something that's kind of unavoidable with manual manufacturing, and you have to have much better QA to catch these things and make sure errors don't build up because people don't always do it the exact same way every time.
Robert?
When I visited Seagate's factory in Wuxi, China, which makes 1.1 million hard drives a week, the factory didn't have any men working on the line. And I asked the guy who ran the factory, why not? He goes, oh, men drop drive on floor and put it back online. Women drop drive on floor and bring it over to me. Robot never drops drive. Humans are imperfect. We make mistakes and we make them and we don't behave like a robot. Robot does the same thing every single time.
Thanks, Robert. Dallas?
Yeah, so then what is the reason for the current moment right now? I know BYD does not sell vehicles in the United States. Is there a reason for that, Omar?
They're afraid to sell vehicles in the United States because they think the US government's going to kick their ass, which they would. They're not open to competition. Now they want to get into the US market eventually, of course, but they're really looking at Mexico and South America. And they're saying, okay, well, let's just build a factory in Mexico and just start selling vehicles there. And people in Mexico and South America are loving it. They haven't really gotten EVs before. And here are these super low cost electric vehicles for them. And they're going to go into that market, and people are looking at it and they're saying, wait a minute. We have a free trade agreement with Mexico. Couldn't they just make the cars in Mexico and then ship them into the United States? And there would be no tariff? So they're kind of looking at how to approach this. I think they're inevitably going to come to the United States. We can't sit here and say, yeah, they're never going to come to the United States. the US government is going to try and stop them. I mean, you're going to see things like Europe where they tried to have tariffs, but then I think eventually reach some agreement with them. But inevitably, these cars will be sold worldwide. They're already in our backyard, much closer than you think. They're in Canada, they're in Mexico. My parents were just in Eastern Europe, they're in Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan and all these places you've never heard of where they're just buying these BYD electric vehicles.
Thank you. Ellie?
Don't they have a bus manufacturer in Baltimore or something like that?
Yeah, we actually have FSD driver in YouTube live chat says BYD is a leading manufacturer of energy storage systems in the US and offers a variety of products from residential, commercial, and utility applications. Thank you, FSD driver, for chiming in. And Wes Wallen continues to respond to FSD questions in YouTube live chat. Wes used to work for Tesla Autopilot, and you can ask him personalized FSD questions in YouTube live chat through the link at the top of your screens. Thank you, Wes, for doing this. And Wes says changes of bringing FSD to a non-Tesla EV would be changes to their vehicles at the chassis level can take 1 to 3 years. So that's, I guess, his timeline for if BYD were to license FSD. Let's see. Wes also responds to Nick L and says licensing only happens when Tesla has demonstrated a reliable solution on a given hardware platform. Remember, the company licensor would need to make changes to their vehicles. Yeah. Yes, a few years out. That's possible in the future. I guess we'll see. We'll see. Okay. In other BYD news, BYD Shark right-hand drive. So BYD Shark is their pickup truck. It's more of a Tacoma type of pickup truck rather than Tundra. So these are slightly smaller, like Ford Ranger. Is now selling in Australia, right-hand drive in Australia, for an equivalent of about 38,000 US dollars, which I thought was interesting. $38,000, very cheap. And they're selling pickup trucks now in Australia. But this is a PHEV, so it's a plug-in hybrid. Okay, it's pretty capable. I think it's going to challenge Ford and Toyota, who have the top selling 2 pickup trucks in Australia. So something to keep an eye on. BYD is not standing still here. It's expanding to other product categories, many countries. So it's really important for Tesla to move rapidly on FSD, develop an FSD. Omar, any comments on that front? BYD Shark.
Yeah, I mean, the legacy automakers should be terrified of this thing. A low cost. And by the way, these BYD vehicles are not crappy vehicles. They've improved a lot in a lot of ways. In many ways, they're more modern than the legacy automakers from a software perspective. So this should really terrify legacy auto. A low cost hybrid truck. Luckily, they have, the chicken tax, 25% import tax on foreign pickup trucks. But if they found a way to circumvent this, I think they're producing them in Mexico and got this into the United States, it would be trouble for vehicles like the Ford Maverick, which has become a really popular hybrid pickup truck.
Thanks, Omar. Omar, one question to wrap up this Tesla versus BYD conversation that we had today that we're going to continue in the coming episodes as well. But if there was a recession ahead, which company is better positioned in your opinion?
Tesla or BYD?
Right.
Well, is this a Chinese recession or an American recession?
Global. Wow. I came up with
Tesla
a
would
question
probably be better off.
after 216 episodes, everybody came up with a question that makes Omar think. How
Well,
about
I mean, I
that?
just want to make sure there's a lot of factors to consider, but yeah, I think Tesla would probably be better off. Their $33 billion in cash, their margin profile, their access to American capital markets, and BYD's exposure to the sort of lower end, high volume customer base probably makes them more sensitive to, for example, increases in unemployment or things like that.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about macro as well while we're on the topic. Man, I love these transitions today. Topic to topic to topic. Very fast paced, tight, good information, and they're all kind of relate to each other. Speaking of recessions, a lot of people out there are worried about rising long end of the yield curve. US Treasuries interest rates have been rising in the 10, 20, 30-year range of the yield curve. This obviously inversely affects all asset prices, including stocks, bonds, real estate, etc. There's a growing conversation about the US deficit and the debt levels. Omar, how worried are you about this? How worried are you about the rising end of the US yield curve? And do you think the bond market is being complacent about what these candidates are promising they're going to do? And I think everybody's convinced at this point, whoever the president is, the debt levels will continue to grow. And there might be an issue about the long end of the yield curve. What do you think?
Yeah, I think markets are uncertain. They're not sure if the Fed necessarily made the right move. And I think really when you look at the promises these candidates have made, both are really promising even larger deficits, right? In the case of the Democrats, you have spending programs, initiatives. Hey, free $25,000 for everyone who wants to buy a house. Here's the money for this. If you're a black entrepreneur, you can have a loan, right? So all these programs obviously cost money. And then on the other hand, with Trump, you have tax cuts that he's proposed. You also have new tariffs. So there's a lot of uncertainty. I think probably whoever is president needs to take some pretty dramatic action to try and get the budget balanced. Americans have been living with trillion-dollar deficits for so long now that people just kind of shrug it off. And they go, so what? Yeah, billions of dollars of debt. It doesn't really matter. The world keeps spinning, everything's fine. But if you have a situation where the deficit gets worse, people get concerned about the US's ability to pay, it's kind of like the restrictive policy we've seen over the past few years in that it's going to drive up yields for private companies, or sorry, drive up interest rates. So it's really important we get the budget balanced. And based on the promises these candidates are making, things are only going to get worse. Of course, there's always a chance to, once you become the actual candidate, have policy that's different than what you promised. But I can see why the market's a little uncertain.
Thanks, Omar. Any other questions, comments? Please request to speak. Don't request to speak if you're a bot. I see through your methods. All right. Thank you very much, Drew. Just super chatted $2 for Wes for his contributions. Thank you, Wes, for answering so many questions in live chat. All right, who can join me on YouTube for an after party for about 15, 20 minutes? Ellie?
No, I'm raising my hand. I can.
Okay, Ellie can. Anyone else? I sent a link, a StreamYard link to the speaker DM group. When they take some questions. Oh, wow. Okay, we just got another super chat from Sterling Tucker. Thank you very much for the kind words. That's great. Hustletown?
Yeah, I won't be able to do it today or Wednesday, but I love this idea of a cool down on StreamYard straight for YouTube. That sounds really fun, but I can't do it today.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, cool. All right, I guess I might just do it with Ellie. And if anybody wants to join. Any other questions, comments? Otherwise, we're going to keep today's episode tight on X. We're all been here for an hour and 20 minutes. Early on, we talked about US elections. And then we talked about Optimus versus Atlas. Now we talked about BYD versus Tesla. Hey Omar, there's a pictures and videos of a Cybertruck overturn, a Cybertruck accident overturn. Do you have any details on that? I didn't have a chance to look into it too much.
Yeah, I guess there was some horrible accident in Mexico, or a Cybertruck just got destroyed somehow, and all three passengers walked out unscathed, and they survived. So I think it's just a testament to the incredible safety engineering at Tesla. I think Cybertruck obviously takes this to another level. And you had some people like Lars saying, we take photos like this and we post them up in the crash labs of these real crashes where, people survived. And that's really what motivates us to keep pushing the bar further.
Thank you very much. Do we have any detail on how they were able to overturn the Cybertruck like that?
It's funny, Wes Morrill of the Cybertruck program said, I've looked at every crash simulation out of the crash lab for Cybertruck, and I have no clue how that happened. Like, what the hell happened here? Whatever it was, it must have been pretty wild. So I'm sure more details will come out in the future.
Thank you, Dallas.
And just to clarify, they weren't unscathed. One of the persons in the car was actually pretty seriously injured, but they all survived.
Yeah, I mean that accident looks very serious. It's um, surprising that they even have a shot right now. All right. Nick L. Omar asks, "What's Omar's Tesla holiday update wish list?"
Grok, X for the car, X spaces built in, and what else? FSD unsupervised. Realistically, FSD 13.
Yeah, FSD 13, Grok, and a couple of things. Peter asks, "Do you think Hardware 3 AI 3 will support FSD 13?"
Sorry, what about hardware 3?
Do you think Hardware 3 will support FSD 13?
Yes, but not at the same time as AI 4. It'll come later.
Okay, great. Let me check to see if there's anything else we need to discuss here. Omar, I had a one-off question here. How much does Waymo using? Actually, I can ask this to Wes Wallen too. How much does Waymo using HD maps reduce the need for inference compute on board?
Hard to say, hard to quantify it, but the use of HD maps can reduce the error rate of inference predictions by eliminating them. So rather than having to sort of figure out the road boundary yourself, you actually know where the road boundary is, and you don't have to use AI to try and figure it out at all. So it probably helps reduce inference compute, but it's difficult for me to quantify how much that impact is.
Okay, great. Thank you, Omar. All right. Ellie is on StreamYard on YouTube through the link at the reverse screens. We're going to have a 10-minute after party there. We need to grow the YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe through the link at the top of our screens and join us for the 10-minute after party where we're going to discuss, just a summary of what we discussed in the space and maybe answer some questions from YouTube live chat. If you're a speaker, I sent a link to the speaker DM group. You can join us through that link. Alexander is just there too. Perfect. All right. Omar?
Yeah, one last thing I wanted to say is check out the FSD video I posted and that I'm about to post after this. FSD is doing amazing things. We should see the rollout of that version that I'm posting videos of this week. And then also, I wanted to share my thoughts on that other question really briefly, where you asked, why is the performance different when everything's the same? No two drives are ever the same. Everything's unique. The lighting, the people, the conditions, the world is changing all the time. So that's really the difficulty of FSD. You need to handle everything perfectly, even when everything's changing, handle something you've never seen before. And tons of factors you don't think about can affect how the system performs, including just random chance.
Perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. With that, we're going to continue on YouTube, and then tomorrow, same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. Take care. Chat soon. Can you guys hear me? Ellie?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, perfect. This works.
Yeah.
Great. And Alexander, how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. All right. Well, welcome to the after party. First time for everything, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I like this idea. Nice segment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Let's just do a 5-10 minute summary, and then we can continue. What do you guys think of the Alexander? What's the climate like in Sweden for U.S. elections?
The climate, you mean what Swedish people think?
Yeah, exactly. What do people expect? What do you think will happen? Are they nervous about it? There's a lot of anxiety especially some of this in some of the swing states in U.S. What's the climate like in Sweden? Are they following closely?
Yeah, so it's the front page news on all the media right now. I think most Swedish people would vote for Kamala. I think it's like 80% of Swedish people that been asked would vote for Kamala. And I think a lot of Swedish people are also worried about Trump might like increase tariffs on the Swedish products for export to the US. And that's a thing that my colleagues told me that they are worried about that maybe happen. So, but I'm more for Trump because yeah, obviously I'm a Tesla investor and I value that more than anything else right now.
Okay, thank you. Ellie, how is the climate in Israel?
Yeah, so for us in Israel, I can tell you that the word on the street is all about Trump. We want to see Trump. We believe that he's a stronger candidate, so he will do good. You know, we will force some people to do this. He will force some countries. I'm sorry, to do some. To back off our back. Iran, Russia, Ukraine. We want a strong leadership. And also, people do pay a lot of money for large billboards in Tel Aviv. We're talking about millions of shekels for like a week or so, and we see his face all over Tel Aviv.
Okay, Alexander, did you learn anything new in today's space?
That's a good question. Did I learn anything new? Not really. What was said was really what I was expecting to be said about the election, and I guess BYD discussion. Yeah, no, not really.
Well, what about the Boston Dynamics discussion?
I mean, the Boston Dynamic discussion. I don't think Boston Dynamics gonna compete with Tesla in that regard, because you see it's a whole different approach when they don't even have local inference on the robot. I don't even know how they would ship that to millions of people and make it work. Would you have a local inference computer at home that steers the robot? I don't think so.
Do you think Boston Dynamics will ever produce Atlas or another humanoid in volume, and volume defined as millions?
Not for the average consumer. It would probably be for like military or something like that. I guess, because I don't think Tesla would go into the military contracts.
Can I
Interesting.
jump in?
Yeah, Ellie.
I actually believe that they will go to the industry, to the factories, all that stuff. So I believe that Tesla is well fitted to the consumer, to the individuals via the Tesla stores, the idea of what Tesla is, and Elon Musk and all that stuff. So Boston Dynamic can definitely go to the military, to the factories, some other industries, but that's what I believe. It will take time for them to penetrate the individual, that they have a product that it's achievable, might be achievable, but not in the next 5 to 10 years maybe. So that's my take.
Okay, thank you. Is either of you worried about BYD as a competition for Tesla? Let's start with Ellie. Ellie, obviously BYD is vertically integrated into manufacturing EVs. They produce their own batteries and they do a great job as well, to the extent that Tesla had to rely on their batteries in Europe for a while. And do you think BYD will be able to vertically integrate into autonomy in the next 5-10 years? And does that worry you as a Tesla investor?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned in the space on X, I do see a path for Chinese companies to do that, because Zeekr working with Waymo and some other companies, ZF, as I mentioned. So if Zeekr can adopt Waymo and Waymo can adopt Zeekr, that's the path for BYD maybe to follow. So as an investor, I don't really worry. I think there is enough space for two big companies. In Israel, I see BYDs all over the place. I see them all over the place. I drove some of the cars. They are nice cars, but they cheap in the term of money. The quality is okay, nothing more. And actually, people leaving their car behind and moving to Tesla, they do us a great favor.
Yeah, I don't think BYD is the biggest threat to Tesla. I think BYD is more threat to Volkswagen and others than it is to Tesla. And I think Tesla has a whole another kind of brand image than BYD does. So at least in Sweden, when you talk about BYD, it's just a cheap Chinese product. At least that's the image that people project onto BYD.
Yeah. Going, Alexander, tomorrow, let's look into what type of sensors BYD has on its cars, ADAS features it has, and also what sensors Atlas uses, and we can compare that to Optimus tomorrow as well. Okay. All right. So a lot of people in live chat are commenting on the sound quality being better here, and that's because I'm using directly the microphone built into the laptop provided by Paymore. Paymore, thank you very much for giving me this laptop. And also, I'm going to try to do these about 10-15 minute kind of recaps after every space from now on YouTube exclusive. In order to be able to grow the YouTube channel, we have to get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube for financial sustainability of Tesla Live. All right. And with that, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for joining us in the after party. And I will chat with you all tomorrow in Tesla Live episode 217. Take care.
Bye-bye.